Hey guys, I'm going to do a little quick video today while I'm working on this commission. This isn't the commission, this is actually just the sketch for it right now. So what I'm doing here is I'm just doing an acrylic painting, and this acrylic painting is just a sketch, right? So this is just to kind of get the image mapped out and just to try and figure out the values, where all the light shapes and the dark shapes are going to go. So it's just a compositional sketch, really, that's all it is. And the reason I like to work with acrylic paint is because of how forgiving it is. So, you know, if I make a mistake in the drawing, just trying to, you know, figure out the forms or whatever, then it's going to be pretty easy for me to correct because, you know, with acrylic paint, you know, if I make a mistake, I can just paint over it with a different value. Whereas oils, I find, can be a little trickier to do that. You don't really have many room for mistakes, I think, when you use oils. I think with oil paint, you've kind of got to have a very good plan of what you're doing. Because the thing is with oils is that they stay wet for a very long time, which is nice when you're mixing colors and things like that. Like, it's good to have them stay wet on the palette for a long time. It also makes your brush strokes a little more flexible. You can sort of mix the colors a bit more on the canvas. So, you know, oil paint does have that nice flexibility going for it. But acrylic paint, I like how it dries very quickly, so that if I do make a mistake in the drawing, then, or in the painting, sorry, then it doesn't really matter, because I can just quickly paint over it with a very opaque color. And I think it just makes the process of the sketch go a little faster overall. And I find that acrylics tend to sorry, I'm just trying to concentrate here. I find personally that when I use acrylics, I tend to use better brush strokes, I guess. So this is a very rough part of the stage. Like, these are just very basic tones. I'm kind of in the first stage of the painting right now, just looking for the shadow shapes and the background atmosphere. So it's not looking very good right now, but hopefully in the next few layers, when I go over it a few more times, I'll have a much more refined image. But I just find that acrylics forces me to plan my brush strokes a little bit better. And I'm kind of interested in trying to paint something with the most minimal amount of brush strokes. Because, you know, less is more, you know. I think you can say more with less. a lot of the time. So that's kind of what I like to do when I use acrylics. I don't think this figure in the background is turning out very well though, so I'm probably going to have to fix him up. But right now, I'm not really interested in perfection. I'm actually more interested in just getting my tones on the page and just killing all of these white areas, you know, like I don't want to see any white parts of the paper. So these early stages are really just to cover up that white, get the figures on the page, and any mistakes that I've made, I can just correct in the later stages. So I'm not worried about perfection right now. I'm more worried about just getting the image on the paper very, very quickly. So I'm just using black acrylic paint and white acrylic paint, and that's it. Like I'm just doing a value sketch, so I'm not using colors, which is nice because that means I don't have to mix a broad range of colors. And as you know, acrylics do dry fast, so you know, using color would be pretty annoying because I'd have to constantly be remixing them, which is not what I want to do. So, you know, if I do like a color painting, I would go for oils instead, because oils stay wetter on the palette for a lot longer, and just gives me more of a chance to explore the colors and gives me time to paint the canvas. But because I'm doing a value sketch and I'm just mapping out the light shapes and the shadow shapes, I'm not too bothered about color right now. And so I figured it'd be easier with acrylic. And color matching is pretty hard, but value matching I think is fairly easy. I break my tones, I try to break them down into 5 values, right? So you got like your dark gray, and then you got your mid gray, and then you got your lighter grays. And I try to keep them sustained to 5 different values. So my lightest value would be like a very light gray, maybe close to white. But I don't like white. I don't use pure white. So like a very light gray. The next value would be a little darker than that. And then the next value would be like a mid gray tone, somewhere in the middle. And then the bottom 2 values would be like a sort of darker gray. So this value here that I've used for the shadows, or the really deep shadows, that's about as dark as I want to go. And then this gray that covers the atmosphere and the landscape, that's probably about as light as I want to go. So I'm working with a very condensed range. I can go a little bit lighter than this for some of the highlights on the figures, for like where the sun might reflect off the armor. But I think, yeah, this kind of gray right here, this is kind of about as light as it's going to get. So that's why I'm trying to kill all of this white paper, because it's very distracting and it's kind of messing with the values quite a lot. So my objective right now is to just kill all of that white of the paper. That's my one and only objective right now. At the moment, I'm just filling in these characters far off in the distance. So they'll obviously have a much brighter value, pretty close to this one, because they are far away in the atmosphere. But this is why I do these sketches, is because it's just much quicker to figure these things out in a smaller painting before working on the larger painting. So I'll show you what I'm actually drawing here. because it's a bit choppy at the moment. But this is basically one of the figures. I'll get him on camera. There we go. So he's like one of the figures of the painting there. So these are like the Polish Hussars, or the winged Hussars, I think they're called. And this is basically for a commission. So this acrylic sketch that I'm working on is actually, it's intended to be like a large mural, because they got a wall that needs filling up. And this is what I've been working on for the last few weeks. This is why I haven't really had much time to record content for YouTube. But you can see there's just some bit of a color study on this side, which didn't turn out very well, but it is what it is. But yeah, I didn't really have much time to make new content, but I figured I would come in here and just get the camera rolling so you guys can see what I'm up to. Okay. Because I figured it would be good to film the process of some of this. So you guys can get a bit of an idea of what I've been up to and how I do it. So because this mural is quite large, the wall is about 5 meters wide and it's about 2.5 meters tall. So that's a lot of ground to cover, which is okay. I don't mind that. But what I need to do before I embark on the mural, I've really got to do as many of these sketches as I can. Okay. And so these early stages, these are just going to be very basic values. So I'm not over blending or anything like that. I'm just mixing the right value that I need. And I think these values for the figures in the distance should actually be a bit brighter, just to kind of give the effect that they're very far away in the background. But yeah, the idea is to really just kind of get the main values in there. So those 5 key values that I was talking about earlier. And then after that, I can start mixing the very detailed values that are in between. And, you know, I can start modeling the forms a little bit more. You know, I can start describing those turning forms with light and shadow and things like that. But right now, this stage is all about very simple brushstrokes and very simple imagery. And I really just want to get a good read of the image. And basically what that means, what a read is basically, you know, you should be able to look at the image and be able to tell what it is. That's basically what we're talking about when we talk about a good read. So a bad read would, you know, you look at the image and you're just not sure what you're looking at. Now, this image isn't finished, obviously, so it's not going to be a really good read, I know that. But as long as I can look at all of these forms and I can understand what they are, then I can move on to the next stage and start refining. But if there's anything here, even in this most basic stage, if there's anything here that's confusing me, if there's anything that I look at and I'm just a bit unsure of what that is, then I usually take that as a sign that I should stay in this early stage before moving on to the next one, and just to refine those silhouettes and refine the shapes until I get a good read. Because you should be able to get a good read just with the basic shapes. If you're not getting a good read in the early stages of a painting or a drawing, then no amount of detail is going to fix that, unfortunately. You really have to address that. You really have to just stay in the early stages until you've corrected that problem. Which is a bit frustrating, but I'll tell you what, it's not as frustrating as it's going to be if you skip ahead to the later stages and then you've got all these problems to fix. So it's much better to stay in these very basic stages for as long as you can before moving on to the details. Okay, so, you know, when I look at this figure, for example, I can see that this is a horse. You know, I've drawn the harness and all of the bells and whistles, and I've got the mane here. And it's very amazing how you can just look at that and your brain can just put those pieces together just with some basic brushstrokes. I mean, all I did was very basic brushstrokes there. It did not take me long to paint any of that. Or even this guy, you know, like he's just a solid value. It's all just solid value of brushstrokes broken up across the image. And I've basically just placed them in areas that are going to be the most descriptive. And that's kind of what you're doing here, you know, you're just using basic brushstrokes and you are painting them in a way that makes the image make sense, right? So typically, I try to go for the shadow shapes. More specifically, I try to go for the shapes that are going to be in very deep, dark shadow. So, you know, like the horse's eye might be very dark. You know, under this dress or this cloak or whatever it is, that would be pretty dark. Between the horse's legs there might be a bit of a dark area. The helmet, you know, the visor would be covering his face, and he's got like this face guard. So all of that area around that might be dark. So I always try to look for the deepest, darkest areas that will definitely be in shadow. And I try to place my brushstrokes there. And I try to place them in a way that makes sense. And I try to be efficient. So I try to use just very basic brushstrokes. I don't like faffing around with you know, very detailed, refined blending and things like that. That's not what I'm doing in this stage. I'm literally just going 1 brushstroke, 2 brushstroke, 3, 4, down here, to the side, up. You know, it's just, you want to try and hit that spot with the right value, and you're just going to try and do that with as least, well, with the minimum brushstrokes as possible. It's kind of what you're aiming for there. So that's kind of the idea. And it's harder than it looks. You know, with oil paint, I could blend and I could refine, which is great, but it's probably not what I want to do right now in these early stages. These early stages, you really just want to simplify the image as much as you can and just make sure you've got just enough information on there to describe the forms. And, you know, again, if there's anything that looks rather ambiguous, If there's anything that looks confusing to you, then that's how you know you've got to just work on your silhouettes just a little bit more and work on those brush strokes and those shadow shapes and things like that. Because you can describe a lot of the image without detail. It's never detail that's the problem. The problem is always going to be a lack of clarity, and the clarity, I think, comes from how well you've painted the shapes on your canvas. So yeah, that's a little bit of a sneak preview of what I've been up to. I'm planning to record some of the process for when we actually paint the mural on the wall. So I think that would make for a very good video. So I'll try and keep you guys up to date with this one. But yeah, it's getting there. You know, there's still a lot of work to do. We're not going to start the mural just yet because we've still got to do some color studies, which I probably will do with oil paint. But yeah, we're going to do like a lot of these value studies. This is kind of the main image that we're thinking, just a group of cavalry, these hussars sort of scattered across the landscape. Maybe even get a few of these figures around here in the background. Yeah, we'll see how it turns out, but it's getting there. It's looking pretty cool. So we'll figure it out. But anyway, that's what I've been up to. So I'm going to crack on with this now. And oh, and I'll also do another video of the, you know, that big drawing that I was working on with the Romans marching in the landscape. So I have finished that. I've sent it off to the framers. And when I get it back, I'll do a video of that so you guys can see the finished result. And I'll just talk about how I drew some of the finishing touches on that artwork, because it's been a while since I recorded that one. But yeah, that big piece is basically finished. There's not much more I can really do on it. So I've sent it to the framer. And I should get it back in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that one. All right, guys, I'll catch you later. See you in the next video.